Welcome in. Pro Football Today is live on a Sunday morning. I'm Kevin Walsh. That is Donnie Rightside, and that is Joe Lisi. We have put two teams into the conference championship weekend. We have two more to go. You all right?
Yeah,
I mean,
we're ready. Yep.
So
now we're ready. Yep. Come on now. What time is it? Are we early, by the way? Did we get an extra extended hour today?
No. You're going to make it?
Oh, that's
okay.
right. It is should we just do the first hour, replay it the second hour, nobody would even know the difference, then come back, bang out the third hour. It's not a bad idea. But we have two games to get to today. Detroit hosting Tampa Bay as a 6.5-point favorite. Buffalo hosting Kansas City as a 2.5-point favorite. But today's show will certainly be beginning with the two results yesterday. Both one seeds advancing, Joe, but in much different fashion. Nevertheless, the Ravens and the Niners will be hosting their respective conference championship games.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the first game, Houston went toe-to-toe for a half with Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Didn't have enough. Defense gave up 228 rushing yards on the ground. One-dimensional in the second half, and Lamar Jackson accounts for 4 total touchdowns, 2 on the ground, 100 yards, and 2 through the air. A dominant defensive effort in the second half. And in the nightcap, guys, I mean, Green Bay had San Francisco reeling. Aaron Jones over 100 yards. They missed the field goal with about 3 minutes left. That gives Brock Purdy the opportunity to drive down the field and cap at 24-21. San Francisco proved they deserved to be there, and Brock Purdy stepped up, Donnie.
Yeah, they did. And by the way, that Texans-Ravens game, you know what the interesting part about that was? We're talking about that young team finding a way and trying to win football games. You know what you can't do on the road? False start like 15 times per half here. I mean, you put yourself behind the 8 ball constantly at that point, and there's no way you're going to recover from that. And by the way, that game was 10-10. Lamar Jackson took that game over 2 touchdown passes, 2 on the ground. That's what you want to see from your MVP quarterback in that second game. I feel bad for the Packers. I actually thought, guys, all the way through, the Packers were the better football team, but as Joe points out, you can't make mistakes. There were interceptions to be had that weren't made by the Packers. There were missed field goals that could have put a lot more pressure there on Brock Purdy and the 49ers. But having said that, Purdy didn't bring his A game. Deebo Samuel got hurt, and he still led that touchdown drive late in the rain. That was pretty impressive from him.
Our radio audience is here on a Sunday morning. Pro Football Today across the SportsGrid network, including Sirius XM, channel 159. I thought, Green Bay and Houston, right, are in these positions where, hey, great year, a lot of success, let's build on it. But on the Texans, that was an embarrassing performance, no way you slice it. There's a handful of teams that have been embarrassed this postseason, and they're likely changing head coach or quarterback, or should have changed head coach or quarterback, right? You think about kind of Dallas sticking with what they have. Now, rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, nobody's going anywhere. But that was embarrassing, what they put forward. The Ravens have struggled against the run. They couldn't get the run game going, not at all. They got a punt return touchdown to keep that game tied at the break. The offense never scored. And then the Ravens were in obvious, we're just going to run it on first and second. They couldn't even put them in third downs. So the Texans, to me, somehow managed to no-show a football game. They were tied at half. The Green Bay angle of it, where they could not be opportunistic, I thought, in the red zone, and that was the big difference. The Niners' defense is probably not going to get enough credit for what they did in that game, forcing Green Bay to settle for 2 field goals that they made, a third that they missed, and even the second touchdown drive was only there because of a huge kickoff return that was nearly what was fumbled, could have been recovered by the San Francisco 49ers. So I thought that the Green Bay, if you look at the kind of the box score, the yards per play, total plays, it's actually very even, slightly leans towards the Niners. The Packers missed an opportunity, though, in that football game. And the next thing you know, and we'll get into this more, but Jordan Love is very soon going to become one of the highest-paid quarterbacks in football. That is a big missed chance that they missed out on in that game against San Francisco.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about winning the turnover battle, especially in divisional playoff type of atmospheres. They lost the turnover battle 2-0, right? Yeah. But from a game plan perspective, I thought Matt LaFleur had the right type of game plan. They come out, first drive, 6-7 minutes off the clock. Aaron Jones running the football. And that was the biggest question mark that we had coming in is, can they run the football consistently on that front seven that was only given up into that matchup, only 89 rushing yards per game. Aaron Jones on the first couple of drives, he's eating. They're moving the football chunk type of plays, but when it mattered most, San Francisco holds them to 2 field goals. They have this 7-6 halftime lead, and then in the second half, even though they fell behind when the game was on the line, Jordan Love and that offense couldn't close it out. Still a young team. They have to learn that as the years progress, and next year they're going to be more mature, more experienced, but they just couldn't close it out yesterday in the rain-soaked field yesterday.
Just needed to get one stop on that final drive. They win in advance there, which would have been an unbelievable spot there for Detroit with maybe a pathway to getting to the Super Bowl. They play a little bit later today. Obviously, we'll get to that. But also, you'd see Jordan Love, and sometimes I see this with a little bit with Jalen Hurts. Late in that game, right? 3 timeouts, about a minute to play. Take what the defense gives you. First play, they get, an 8 or 9 yard out, I think, to Romeo Doubs. Then they just start forcing things downfield. And a terrible back foot throw outside the pocket, which ended up in an interception. You didn't need that. No. Put yourself in position. You're probably going to say, you know what, dink, dunk, and yeah, we might end up with a 55-yard field goal as our best chance, but at least it gives you a chance to win. That pass gave you no chance for any completion. Interception by San Francisco. They escape and move on.
We now get to today's games because we're going to be diving more into those games, the fallout from them. And Buffalo, Kansas City is no doubt about it the big one. These are arguably the 2 best quarterbacks in this league going head-to-head with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. The Bills at home are a 2.5-point favorite. They've already won this game this year. But the story of this rivalry, regular season Bills, postseason Kansas City, man, we talk now or never a lot in sports. Boy, does it feel very now or never for Buffalo as far as beating the Chiefs here in this spot.
Best opportunity over the last 3 years, so this is it. It's do or die. And look at what happened last year against Joe Burrow, right? They have the home playoff game under their belt. They beat the Miami Dolphins in terms of round number 1. You have Joe Burrow come in. You fall behind 14-0 before you could even blink. The crowd's taken out of the matchup, and they just limp to a loss in terms of that ball game. It's very critical today to get started fast. We saw Green Bay get started fast last week. I think Sean McDermott, Josh Allen need a hot start. You can't give Pat Mahomes an opportunity to pull this ball game out, and they're going to have to shut down the rushing attack. Kansas City, $147, 4.3 yards per rush last week against Miami. They need a better effort. If Isaiah Pacheco gets going, could be a long day, guys.
And Isaiah Pacheco could get going today as well as Travis Kelce. The reason I bring that up is you're talking about a linebacking core that's been absolutely decimated here for the Buffalo Bills. You know when the last time we saw a decimated linebacking core? That was with the Miami Dolphins. Chiefs, an easy victory. Not saying it's going to be easy today, but if everybody's in agreement, this is the time where you have to beat the Kansas City Chiefs for the Buffalo Bills, but I don't even think we're going to get the Buffalo Bills' best punch, at least defensively. If this is going to be an awesome game to watch, rooting perspective, yeah, I'm rooting for Buffalo, no doubt about it, though.
Detroit is 6.5-point home favorite against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That total is 49.5. Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, a pair of number 1 overall picks that were moved off from their franchises that selected them, that have seemingly found a new home, and a chance to go to the NFC Championship game is on the line. But we begin in Baltimore. The Ravens advance. The fallout is next.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. We're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Schuler.
Mike Schuler was a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings?
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're live on SportsGrid. It's Kevin Walsh. It's Donnie Rightside. It's Joe Lisi. We're going to talk about yesterday's games here. We're going to break into double preview. We'll re-rack these games when needed. I want to start with this. For me, while the Ravens' dominance will have to be addressed, the night game was the big one with the closeness of it between the Niners and the Packers. And I really believe that Green Bay missed out on a major chance. And I think if you were a Bucs or Lions futures ticket holder, you are livid over last night's result. It is not that Green Bay is a layup. It is not that the Niners are unimpeachable. A home playoff game, hosting the conference championship game, either the Lions or the Bucs, if Green Bay did eliminate the San Francisco 49ers. Brock Purdy took a lot of fire for his performance in that game, and I get it. But the fact that he had his second lowest yards per pass attempt of the entire year, not just in a win, that's his lowest in a win, but his entire season, that is the second fewest yards per attempt he's had all year long. Only one touchdown pass from Brock Purdy. And he wasn't knocked off in that game, or the Niners as a whole weren't knocked off in that game. I look at it now, and the Niners are now minus 320 to win the conference championship. And I know it is dangerous to write off an opponent that we don't even know who it's going to be yet. But I think it is very unlikely that you get that game out of Brock Purdy again. I think there's a level of demons exercised for Purdy, who his last playoff game was being injured by the Philadelphia Eagles. His last big game was against the Baltimore Ravens, where he saw the MVP fall out of his grasp, and he obviously was able to work through it, leads the comeback game-winning drive, and the fact that that performance still resulted in a Niners victory, I think I will be stunned if this team is not playing in the Super Bowl out in Las Vegas.
With Baker Mayfield, even though Rashad White's come on, it's not as dominant and as physical of a rushing attack with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. But you just brought it up. Brock Purdy answered the bell. When the game was on the line, the pressure was there, he stepped up. He made plays, not just with his arm. He made a couple of plays outside the pocket in terms of breaking, contain, got the first down inside the 10-yard line. That's what you want to see out of your leader. And he led this team to a victory. Again, there's no doubt they are, in my opinion, from an offense and defensive line perspective now, the best team standing, right, out of the three. Can they live up to expectations? They came out a little bit flat, especially on the defensive side of the ball last week, for that in next week's game. So we'll see how it plays out. But he answered all the answers yesterday in terms of that matchup in the final 2 minutes.
Facing adversity, he did very well. Needed to make a big scramble late in that game, down down in the red zone, got that done, completed the passes, 3rd and 9s, got that done. So he does get a big check mark, but also just goes to show us, too, you play in good weather where you have those dome-like conditions typically in San Francisco, he can operate very well. You threw a little bit of rain in there, and it was like, you know what, a couple of those passes off the mark. I remember one of those dump-off passes to Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield that was bounced short, and they were talking about him wearing a glove, not wearing a glove, but also Deebo Samuel down, not having everybody full gas. That was a very good win. And also, by the way, did you see that stat? Was that Kyle Shanahan like 0-30 entering into the fourth quarter, down 5 points or more? They won that football game. That's something you can reach back to, because if things aren't going well in the NFC Championship game, if things aren't going well in the Super Bowl, hey, guys, we did this before. We were down late in the fourth quarter, had put together a drive for a touchdown, and won a football game here. It'll be interesting moving forward, but to Kevin's point, it's probably going to be hard to keep them out. I think the look-ahead lines were like 6.5 points and 10, depending on who they're playing this weekend coming up. That was the one game where you had your chance to knock the 49ers out and didn't. Maybe the 49ers get stronger now from this point.
Quickly to the point on that stat, and this is something that's been going on now all season long with Brock Purdy. As you know, Jimmy Garoppolo was never for me, bashed him consistently. People have decided that just everything that was true about Jimmy has to be true about Brock Purdy. And that statistic of not being able to complete comebacks was true of Garoppolo, but now Brock has finally completed one. I want to just mention this quickly on the Green Bay side. And again, Jordan Love had a phenomenal postseason, a great stretch of football, right? Look, people made money once again backing Jordan Love. 2 passing touchdowns, they cover the number, they get over the team total. All of that stuff worked out great for Green Bay. But here's another reason why this was, to some degree, a missed opportunity. If you had to rank heading into the next season the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFC, I think the consensus would probably be something along the lines of Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, and Kirk Cousins. I think people would leave out Purdy and Kyler, give or take. Well, here's the reality on that, right? Dak is about to get a gigantic bag, and we all know what his expectations are. Jalen's already been paid. We know what his expectations are. Stafford eventually riding off into the sunset. Nobody expects really anything from Kirk Cousins. Well, Jordan Love now has to be paid like these guys, and all you have is this very incredible end to his season, Joe. But that is all they have, and they're going to have to pay him off of that. Jalen Hurts and what he did last year earned him all of that money. There's some people now wondering, oh, gosh, is this the Carson Wentz thing again? The Packers, and that's why I say it's a missed opportunity, because this is it. Now you pay Love off of a 7-8 game window.
No, understood, but we talk about it. He progressed as the year went on, right? And he played his best football against the better competition and led his team to the playoffs. So does have a playoff win against the second overall seed in terms of the playoffs. Dominated and put up 40-plus points on a team that had a 16-game home winning streak, right? And it dominated the competition. So if we're looking big picture on Jordan Love, I mean, the sky is the limit, especially when you look at the playmakers around him, the quarterback to wide receiver relationship with Wicks, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs. They're going to develop not just with Jordan Love at the helm, but as a team, and that's what you want to see. So if I'm making that decision on Jordan Love, I'm paying him because he is the face of the franchise. He waited his opportunity maybe a little bit longer than what they should. But in terms of what he has done this year, you got to pay the man because, again, if they revert back to a draft pick or a free agent, a poor decision to lead this team, I believe.
Yeah, you can't just let him walk. Then who's going to be in the building there? And also, you're not going to franchise tag the guy and say, okay, let's eat up, I don't know, $40 million that we can't even kick down the road here when you sign him to a long-term deal. So he's going to be signed, and he is good. Look, quarterbacks that hit the open market are going to get unbelievable amounts of money. He's not going to hit the open market because they'll probably, tag him or just sit him there and say, okay, we'll work something out. He'll miss some OTAs. We know how this all plays out. But, again, Daniel Jones,
I was just going to say
$40 million a year to do nothing. He's going to start at $40 million a year, which probably means that his agent, and rightfully so, like, okay, let's go back to last year. Oh, Joe Burrow, well, maybe not there. Let's start at Jalen Hurts and round around where Lamar Jackson is, and that's our starting point, $50 million a year. He's going to get it.
And, again, that's why the length that they sit him is difficult. As much as I am tempted to, maybe I can find a way to combine it all. We are just never going to get Coach of the Year, right? And I know, like, DeMeco Ryans or Stefanski is going to win this, but then you sit back and you go, wait a minute. The Ravens won 13-4, the number 1 seed. We've known Harbaugh's incredible this entire time. They smashed every playoff team they saw, and here we go again. And look, me saying that DeMeco Ryans isn't as good as John Harbaugh is not a knock. Harbaugh is one of the very best in this entire sport. Yep. He's one of the best of the the last decade plus. But and that takes away a little bit from what Lamar was spectacular, and Monken's been great. McDonald's going to be a head coach. Everybody is involved, right? But the point is with the Ravens, and even I had my doubts, right, throughout points of the season, and admittedly, there's a chance I pick against them next week, depending on if it's Buffalo or Kansas City. But man, do they have a great claim to being the very, very best team in this league. Still not Super Bowl favorites. That spot belongs to the Niners.
No, but he's deserving to be Coach of the Year. But we talk about Coach of the Year type of odds and type of races in regards to how it relates to the market. And I'll use your Philadelphia Eagles as an example. When they were 10-1, Nick Sirianni was never mentioned for Coach of the Year, right?
Yeah.
So the expectation was that they were going to be a great football team. Same thing with Baltimore. We give these awards to less teams that had a 4.5, 5 win total, and that's why Ryans and Stefanski are in the mix right now.
Like if Andy Reid pulls off the upset today, and then again winds up in the Super Bowl, it's like, I never even thought about him Coach of the Year.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. The award is, it's like, hey, we thought you were going to be terrible.
Yes.
Ravens, we thought too much of you. We start to preview today's games next.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula?
Mike Shula was a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings?
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Lions, Bucks, otherwise known as That's at least the early returns. Total 49.5, highest total of today's slate, and a good opportunity to be the highest scoring game of the weekend. 45 points for the game between the Niners and the Packers is currently that top benchmark there. It is actually still an available market, believe it or not, for this to be the highest scoring game of the weekend, priced at minus 115. It's a layup.
It's a layup.
I mean, it's already a win. It's already in the door. Nothing
really?
to even worry.
We're starting that today.
Nothing to even worry about.
Nice. Okay.
Lions, Bucks, 6.5-point line. What do you see in this game?
Well, you have two hot offenses right now, and Baker Mayfield playing just as good as Jordan Love. Over the last 5 weeks, he's averaged 289 passing yards per game. He stepped up last week in a dominating home performance over the Philadelphia Eagles. Has playmakers like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and Rachaad White coming out of the backfield. And we talk about the front sevens of both of these teams. I mean, Detroit only giving up 88 rushing yards on the ground to opposing offenses. Tampa Bay giving up 92. So I expect fireworks in this ballgame. I do give the inside edge to the Detroit Lions because they're at home, because of their ability potentially to wear down Tampa Bay. But I think this total, it flies through the 49.5. I'd be shocked, stunned if we go under 49.5 today, guys.
Sometimes you take a look at it and you say, like, what's the game flow supposed to be? Forget about the points. Like, we're expecting 50 points. I think there'll be a lot today. But it's the game flow of, like, you know what? We're going to establish Montgomery early in this game and quiet the crowd. You're at home. What are you talking about? Or Baker Mayfield going, like, you know what? Let's change tendencies here in this game and let's really grind the clock. That's not going to happen. You attack that Detroit secondary here. That's what you do. And also, Detroit as a home team in a dome with Jared Goff, they've been absolutely sensational this year overall. So for me, the game flow and the game tempo does say over. But if we're looking at that total, right, or excuse me, the side, 6.5, depending where you're shopping at today, home field advantage is big time. It's big time in the NFL, and you're seeing it now in the playoffs. What's the only road team that won was the Green Bay Packers, right?
Yes.
At this point against Dallas. So, but I mean, every other game, home team won.
Oh, no, I just laughed because Dallas was 8-0 at home in the regular season and then proceeded to do that. And then they brought back Mike McCarthy. Yeah, I mean, quickly, Mike McCarthy not getting extended. I mean, the whole thing is just totally nuts.
That is a pretty good one.
I mean, it's totally
Love
nuts.
you, Coach. I don't believe in you, but I do believe in you. Coach next year. See what happens.
By the way, we're going to pay Dak $600 million. Yes. Like, the whole thing is wild. Here is the hesitation that I have with the total.
Really?
Start. It is, and I feel bad saying this, but it's on the Tampa Bay side of it.
Okay.
Tampa Bay last week scores 32 against Philadelphia. Excellent for them. They did it with these 40, 50-yard touchdowns, the late touchdown. The Godwin obviously helped get them to that 32 mark. Final game of the regular season, 9 against Carolina. It was putrid. That game against the Saints where they would have won the division, that was not a playoff game but a pseudo-playoff game, and they scored 13. They didn't score in the first half of that football game at home. I wonder if there are ebbs and flows of Tampa Bay, and if you could unfortunately be on a downturn in this game, which would point towards Detroit on the 6.5 number. But what would be the saving grace for that is the idea that this Lions secondary is unsavable. And I don't mind just getting straight into a prop here, and I know we'll do these throughout Sunday Morning Crunch, but the Lions against number one wide receivers, I know this is going to be a lot, but this is 10 consecutive weeks. This is no me trying to find ways to make – no, this is just 10 straight number one wide receivers. Here are your performances, starting with Keenan Allen. 11 for 175, 2 touchdowns. DJ Moore, 796 touchdown. Christian Watson, 594 and a touchdown. Olave, 5 for 119. DJ Moore, 6 for 681 and a touchdown. Jerry Jeudy at 71 yards. That's your low performance. Justin Jefferson, 6 for 141 and a touchdown. CeeDee Lamb, 13 for 227 yards and a touchdown. Justin Jefferson, 12 for 192 and a score. Puka Nacua for 9 catches, 181 yards and a touchdown. So to put that into the perspective of Mike Evans' prop today, 4.5 catches. That's 9 out of 10. 72.5 yards. That's 8 out of 10. Touchdown. That's 8 out of 10. And a long catch prop of 26.5. 10 out of 10. Number one wide receivers hit this. Mike Evans, Mike Evans for me today.
And that's why I like the over, because you look at Detroit's defense and the secondary giving up 258 passing yards per game. On Tampa Bay side, they're giving up, in terms of the back end, 248. And we talk about the consistency of Baker Mayfield. Not only is he throwing for yards, but he's throwing for touchdowns. 11 touchdowns over the last 5 weeks, Kev. So what did he do last week? He sprinkles in Cade Otton. Trey Palmer gets involved. Now you have other playmakers to take the pressure off of Evans. If Chris Godwin could get going, his number's, I believe, 62.5 today. That's another added benefit. Styles make fights, right? The only game Tampa Bay lost down the stretch, they won 6 of the last 7, was the home game against New Orleans with the season on the line, I believe, in week number 17. This is a hot football team right now, and if Jared Goff starts aggressive as well, just the way they did against the LA Rams last week, now you have a track meet, right? So if I'm Todd Bowles and I'm Tampa Bay from an offensive perspective, I'm going down with my best weapons. The rushing attack has been a little bit inconsistent. Yeah, sure. It's not as dominant. They're more of a finesse type of rush offense with Rachaad White. It's predicated off the success of the passing attack. Look at last week. They get Otton involved, and then it opens up for Rachaad White later in that ballgame. They're not going to be able, in my opinion, to just line it up and go mano-a-mano with Detroit.
No, and it makes a lot of sense, too, because you take a look. The reason why you're having those successes with good wide receivers going against Detroit is because sometimes the Detroit offense dictates that, which means they're pressing the needle down all game long. You can't just run it and take time off the clock. You got to counter them back and forth along with Ben Johnson. I mean, he's been wonderful here pushing that pace. And, again, looking at Baker Mayfield, isn't he perfect for this moment? Like you'd say, forget about, like, the passing attempts. You know he's taking deep shots here. Yeah. You know he's forcing the football to his number one guys here. And from a points perspective here, when they get into the red zone, Mike Evans. I mean, how many times have you been wide open in the end zone on red zone targets this year? I love this from a perspective of both of these quarterbacks really getting after it. But if I honestly believe Detroit is going to win this football game, that means there's going to be a lot of passing and deep shots. And hopefully Detroit even gets out to that early lead, which then Baker Mayfield goes into nuke mode like, hey, look, I have to make something happen, which means interceptions, touchdowns, and deep plays downfield, which could be pass interferences. It says an over to me as well.
So what I would say kind of works in the favor of this total is what happened in the Lions-Rams game. Mm-hmm. That game was, 2017 at the break?
Unbelievable.
Live total touched, I think, 70.5 at one point. If that game continued on its trajectory, would this number be 52.5 today? I think it's very possible. Right. And I think the other thing that you often hope for is with the Lions being listed as the favorite, right? And I know that the game script could always vary to others, but if the Lions are up 10 at the break, let's just say the game is 20-10, right? The Lions cannot, after what they did last week, come out, hey, let's just sit on it, do nothing.
Right.
You got to stay aggressive because last week your offense didn't do enough in the second half, only scored 3 points and left yourself vulnerable to potentially losing that football game there. So that is very, very key. I do need to bring up, because this is true of both of today's games, we have seen this game already this year. Early season, a Tampa Bay team that at the time was 3-1, didn't have a lot of believers, a Lions team that people were starting to get very excited about here, and Detroit goes into Tampa Bay, laying 3.5, win that football game 20-6. You saw David Montgomery leave that game injured. I believe Jahmyr Gibbs was injured heading into the football game as well. They won it on the arm of Jared Goff, 350 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. 20-6, though, that final score. Very interesting just to see what that familiarity could do for this game today.
No, absolutely. And I think you look at the Tampa Bay offense in terms of that point in the season, they were still trying to find an identity. They have their identity now with Baker Mayfield. So, again, I think when you look at these teams, young football teams as well, right? Nobody expected Tampa Bay to potentially be here with a shot to go to the NFC Championship game. We thought that Detroit could be there, but now here they are. So that's where I think they push tempo. Because, again, you don't want to be complacent. You watch what played out in terms of San Francisco last night, where you have a young football team in Jordan Love, and they opt for the field goal as opposed to the kill shot. So that's where I'm expecting both of these offenses to be aggressive early on, push tempo, and in the second half, you know what? Let's go down throwing the football. I'd rather go down throwing the football than just being complacent and running it, Donnie.
A lot of similar tendencies here from between Matthew Stafford and also Baker Mayfield. You saw this week the ability to push push it downfield and also make those wow throws. Baker Mayfield can do that. And I always bring up that same point. If you're looking for a total to go over, you want the quarterback that also makes mistakes. Now, granted, you don't want a red zone interception. It's like, oh, no, we're headed in for points. But Baker Mayfield, no surprise, thought, hey, that's double coverage. What are you doing there? Right. Or, again, just launching it deep to Mike Evans here, saying, you know what, I'm going to give my wide receiver a shot. It's great to have those guys not protecting the football, but also I got to see what Jared Goff has today, because one of my biggest, angles of this game is Todd Bowles loves to blitz. Ben Johnson is a great offensive coordinator, and they have a great offensive line. You pick that up, there's big plays that are going to happen down the field today, guys.
Speaking of big plays, though, on the ground, I'm very excited by what Jahmyr Gibbs could bring to the table. Has a long rush prop of 14.5.
Oh, yeah, come on.
He's missed that in 2 consecutive games.
Ooh.
First time all season he's missed it in 2 straight. Not just 11-6 on this number. Here's what I thought was really enticing. In games where he has 10 or more carries, 9 out of 10 he's gone over this prop. Gibbs should still be factoring into this football game. They didn't give him enough work, I thought, last week on the ground against the LA Rams, and the Bucs have allowed a running back over that number in 4 of their last 5. That's Lions-Bucs for now. Up next is Chiefs-Bills. I don't know if you can break this game down without getting into the narratives around the 2 quarterbacks that are Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. We'll do our best next for you here on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now he's all a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula.
Mike Shula was a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Buffalo, Kansas City. I don't know why. I have like a nervous energy personally around this game. I do.
Okay.
It's part of it is the preseason Bills Super Bowl pick. I have, and people are going to think this is stupid. I have a lot of confidence in Buffalo against Baltimore. Probably confidence that I shouldn't have, but I have it. But this is the matchup that worries me. And I will tell you, with 2.5-point line in favor of Buffalo, 45.5 total. Here is one of the very worrying things about this game. And me not betting it is probably stubborn, but I just haven't, at least at the moment. Josh Allen today is minus 130 to throw an interception. Josh Allen did not throw an interception in his last game, not once. Not one time did he able to go back-to-back games without a pick this year. Like, I talk bounce-back spots all the time. Here's a bounce-back on the over, half a pick for Josh Allen. Why is that relevant? Because when you line up Mahomes and Allen, the Josh Allen is incredibly talented, but he isn't Mahomes. There are a lot of quarterbacks that we fall in love with, but at no point can you actually think to yourself that Josh Allen is as good as Patrick Mahomes. But you have to be able to trust in a situation like this. And it is very difficult for me to line this up and go, all right, so we are already down 1-0 in the turnover battle, Joe, and that is one of the concerning things heading into this game.
No, I understand that, but is it the same Patrick Mahomes? I mean, Mahomes has thrown 14 interceptions this year as well and has been a little bit, not clean with the football. Saw it against the Las Vegas Raiders, and that was at home in Arrowhead. This is his first road start in a very difficult environment. We know Bills Mafia is going to be up in terms of this ball game, and the difference for me, and when we look at this game, and Josh Allen, you take the good, you take the bad, you take the ugly, right? You want him fast and loose heading into this ball game, because when he's restricted, that's where you show the inconsistencies, in my opinion, of Buffalo's offense. So think about this. Since Thanksgiving, Josh Allen has rushed for around 48.3 rushing yards per game. Why is that important? Because that wasn't existent when Dorsey was the offensive coordinator. They're breaking contain in terms of the RPO game. That could put pressure on Kansas City's defense in terms of the perimeter. That opens up the play-action passing attack, more precise throws, safer throws outside the hashes. Then you could take the big shot over the top, potentially to Stephon Diggs or Dalton Kincaid. That's where I think this game plays out. I do lean to the under, Donnie, because of Buffalo's ability, and even Kansas City, to run the football first and then work off a play action.
It's wild to try to break this game down, even because I like overs. We just had a game that we're talking about in Dome with quarterbacks we think are going to really shoot it out today. I'm comfortable in that one. This one, you take a look and say, hold on. It's Andy Reid, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Josh Allen. We don't have weather conditions that are going to be where it's to the point like, hey, I don't know if they can kick the football more than 40 yards or throw it more than 40 yards. And I'm thinking under 45.5, because these two teams, so explosive, guys, in the past couple years, they're not those football teams anymore. It's more, instead of, I use these terminology like 4 plays, 80 yards, and a touchdown with the Tyreek Hill Chiefs, right? That's no longer the case. Now it's 10 plays, 84 yards, and a touchdown, which still could be equally good, but it just takes longer, and you have to have more of that methodical approach moving down the football field. But if we get to these two quarterbacks, both of them equally talented, when they are playing great football, you really can't tell them apart. But you know how you tell them apart to me? Who do you trust more? That you say, coming into this football game, and I know it's harsh to sound because they're both unbelievably talented guys, one player is going to melt down in this game. 3 interceptions, fumble the football, miss open guys. Who would that guy be? Chances are you're probably going to say it's Josh Allen. And again, it's not fair to go to those extremes, but when I look for trustability on the football field, Patrick Mahomes always has your back, because also, they're down 14 points. They're down 21 points if they ever get that much. You always feel that he can come back and the door is never closed, which means you look at those odds makers, they go, we ain't giving you 3 points in this game. We're sticking that at 2.5, so go ahead and get after it.
Well, so to Joe's point about Mahomes' interceptions, he only played 7 road games this year. He threw a pick in 5 out of the 7, did throw 14 overall. And to the Josh Allen, by the way, there's been a number of meltdowns this year, which is a fair description. Yeah. Their losses this year. 6 in OT, 5-4, 6-2, 3 in OT. So the reality is, you want to just talk about live opportunities. Catch either team at plus 3.5 makes all the sense in the world. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I like Buffalo to win the game, but if you gave me plus 3.5, I'd bet Kansas City. But that is what we get out of these teams. Where I differ from the both of you is liking the over in this game. First time they met, 49.5. I was on the over in that matchup. Game had 37 points. and I am no hesitating coming back. Both quarterbacks threw interceptions on the opposing side of the field. We had the Buffalo Bills try and grab a field goal before half, and I still have no idea what the heck they were doing and not even able to get a kickoff there. Rashee Rice fumbled at midfield, and for those that don't remember, anybody who's from Kansas City does, the Kadarius Toney offsides play. That is roughly 1 billion points that felt like it came off of the board in this game, and we've dropped it 4. I don't think we've dropped it that much due to weather concerns. Incredibly, we get deeper into January, and we're not talking anywhere near about weather as much as we were last week. We know it'll be cold. It doesn't look like it'll be snowy, and that's all that matters here. At 45.5, you need both of these teams to have to. It has to be exactly what happened last time. All of the turnovers have to take points off the board as opposed to put them on the board. There will be turnovers. That's fine. But instead of Josh's interception coming on the Kansas City 25, does it happen on his own 25? And same of Mahomes. I think that flips today. I love the over in the game.
I could see that playing out. For me, I'm taking a more of a wait-and-see approach. I'd rather jump in the first quarter again, see if I can get this closer to 40, and then jump in, especially if I see Pat Mahomes take the first drive and go right down the field. And again, I think when you look at this ball game, that is the question mark, the inconsistency as it relates to the weapons. Rashee Rice, 8 receptions, 130 yards last week. Travis Kelce had a pulse, 7 receptions, 72 yards. Does that continue on the road? We haven't seen that on a consistent basis out of these playmakers, so that's why I can't just say, oh yeah, it's definitely an over in terms of this ball game. I'm a little hesitant because look at what they did last week. $147 on the ground. They established the line of scrimmage, 4.3 yards per carry. If they could get that type of productivity as it relates to the rushing attack, they can wear down and keep Josh Allen, wear down the front 7 and keep Josh Allen on the sidelines and look to get out of here with a 21-17, 21-14 type of game. So, again, it can happen. We just haven't seen it on a consistent basis for Pat Mahomes making his first road start. That's why I'm a little hesitant, Donnie.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see him in that environment, too. If I'm looking from a Bills perspective here, I'm really worried about the linebackers for my own team. And also, Travis Kelce hasn't had a great season here. Finally woke up last week in the cold. Why? The Miami Dolphins banged up at linebacker. You can abuse that situation. Also, taking a look from a Buffalo Bills side of things on their offense, Josh Allen needs to be a monster today. And I don't mean 275 and 3 touchdowns. I mean being in control of the game. 3rd and 5, yeah, I'll run it myself, get 6 yards. Let's keep moving these sticks down the field. Because you take a look at his rushing prop, I think he easily gets to 50 yards today. Because I do believe when the pressure mounts up on a player, and sometimes we could talk about this even yesterday, Lamar Jackson, what do we think coming into the game? Now, Kevin, I know you're looking at that rushing prop's like 50, but when I started the week, I said to myself, Lamar Jackson, no matter what happens, is not going to let his football team win. Now, we end up running for over 100 yards. But if you ask Josh Allen tomorrow morning, wakes up, and they lose 23-17, he goes, 4 carries for 22 yards? Like, I had so many chances I could have ran it myself here. I think Josh Allen has a big day on the ground. Why? Because he knows how big this game is to his career. Don't let it slip up.
I was just going to say attempts might be an area to go today. Because 15, I believe, against the Miami Dolphins for what, 51, 60 yards in that area?
That final game last week, he had 8. His prop today is 8.5. Quickly, the Lamar postseason long under bet, one of the worst bets I'll make all year, hopefully. Unless he has 7.
Goes backwards.
He needs 17 or less for the rest of the postseason. Look, it is what it is. Here's the thing I would say, though, about Josh. I'm curious if you two would agree, though, right? So we do the crystal ball box score. If you tell me that he only runs for 20 yards, Bill's cruised. You know what I mean? If they're not losing and he goes for 20 yards. If he doesn't run, it's because they were in control. And that is one of the biggest differences about Kansas City this year. These teams have played twice in the playoffs, and Buffalo has held a 10-point lead in the first quarter in the conference championship game that they lost to them, and then obviously the ridiculous conference semifinal collapse. If this Buffalo team is up in this game 10 points at any point, I'm not firing in live Kansas City moneyline wagers. Even though I'm saying I like the over, even though I'm saying plus 3.5, that is the biggest difference around this Chiefs team. Is the idea used to be if Mahomes is down, congrats, bookmakers, you have to be kidding me. We have to make the Chiefs minus 115 to win a football game, and we all know they're going to come back and win it. That is not the vibe around this Kansas City team, and the sample size of the entire year is way too much to not outweigh what he used to be able to do.
No, absolutely. And think about this. Tyreek Hill is no longer there. So who is the weapon that you can rely on? If Travis Kelce was consistent all season long, you'd say no problem. It's Rashee Rice, and Kelce will get 10 catches for $110 and they'll win this ballgame. You can't even bank on that anymore. And that's why the question marks remain around Kansas City and their rushing attack today with Isaiah Pacheco. I do feel if you're looking for playmakers on the Kansas City side, look for Mecole Hardman. He's the speedster, right? They like to get him out in space on fly sweeps. Has a very short total today, 17.5. He's 8-1 to hit pay dirt. I'm on that already because I think he's the guy that at least Pat Mahomes in a big spot has played with outside of Travis Kelce. Rashee Rice, still a young wide receiver, even though he stepped up last week. Do you believe that he's going to eat for 8 and 130? You got to believe that the Bills defensive staff tries to take him away or contain him. That's why you look to secondary receivers. And on Buffalo's side, it's got to be James Cook, not just in the rushing attack, Donnie, but in terms of the passing game. 22.5, had 80 receiving yards the last time they played in Arrowhead.
I really like what I'm seeing out of Rashee Rice. And sometimes you say, well, he's still a rookie. How can you trust him on the road at this point? Take a look at his last 3 road games. 8 catches, 107. 8 catches, 64 yards, and 9 catches, 91. Then if you want to say, well, what about when the stakes are ramped up and they have to win? How about the Cincinnati game? 5 catches for 127 in Miami in the freezing cold, 8 for 130. So you're seeing a guy come into his own, which, again, leads me down that path to Travis Kelce because it's no longer maybe that teams are saying, take away Travis Kelce, nobody else can catch the football. Maybe we're not getting that now, and you're seeing Rashee Rice step into that number 1 role, which might allow the tight end to eat a little bit more. I'm looking to attack those linebackers today with Kelce, but from that standpoint of Rashee Rice as a young guy, I don't know if he can step up on the road. That's not correct.
I'm on Pacheco's 83.5 rushing and receiving, but also his 18.5 receiving. The rushing receiving number, he's hitting 5 out of his last 6. I wanted to grab a piece of that because his workload these days is great. Our very long, I promise not to relitigate Super Bowl MVP debate yesterday. The reason why I think Pacheco is interesting is this year's Chiefs are willing to just let Pacheco go and be the guy in a game when he has a hot hand. Like last week, they're inside the 5, and I feel like in years prior, Mahomes pretends to give him the ball and keeps it and finds, someone for a 4-yard touchdown pass where this year they give Pacheco a lot of work. But the reason I wanted to bring the receiving in, 15 different running backs this season have hit this prop against Buffalo. And you go back to the game that these teams played, Pacheco missed it. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 29 receiving yards, and McKinnon had 18. Obviously, McKinnon out for this game. Last week, Pacheco not used a lot in the air, but in the 2 prior games that he played with McKinnon out, 4 targets and 7 targets. I think there's a lot of work there today for Isaiah Pacheco through the air. But we will continue to break this game down. Both of these games here reset the updated Super Bowl odds, conference championship odds, and a lot more. But up next, a sharp report for you on a Sunday morning. It is Pro Football Today on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. We're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division.
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula.
Chula was a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Buck.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Pro football today, divisional round action Sunday afternoon. And boy, we got a great game coming up here for you. The second game, it's Kansas City and it's Buffalo. It's time for the Sharp Report.
I cannot wait for the cat and mouse game between Steve Spagnuolo's defense of the Chiefs and Josh Allen's offense of the Buffalo Bills. This game is going to be one for the ages, and I think it's going to be decided on this side of the ball between these two guys playing a cat and mouse style here. The Chiefs have done a great job of limiting the legs of Josh Allen. Though he runs the ball a lot, he does not have a very high yards per carry average against the Chiefs, particularly over the last couple of years. In the first few meetings, he was having success. They really bottled that up the last couple of meetings. Josh Allen, though, does have a high run rate because the Chiefs play such good defense, especially this year. They like to send creative pressures. They'll blitz him. They'll sometimes get natural pressure as well and drop guys back into coverage. Creates a lot of problems, and that's why Josh Allen has not had a lot of success passing the football, especially to Stephon Diggs in this matchup, especially earlier on this season. I think Diggs might be limited because of the season that L'Jarius Sneed is having this year. He's been playing outstanding coverage, very tight coverage. Refs tend to throw fewer penalties at this round of the playoffs. I think Sneed's going to wrap up Diggs to some extent, especially early in this game. Force Josh Allen to either utilize his legs, but what they need to do is focus on the ground game. You can run the football on the Kansas City Chiefs defense, and they're going to have to find a way to get James Cook heavily involved here, both in the run game and in the pass game. I don't see anything wrong with going back to what they did in the prior game, which is 141 combined yards, rush and receive out of James Cook. I think it's got to be a big James Cook game in this one for the Buffalo Bills to have a shot at making the AFC Championship.
Warren Sharp, thank you for that breakdown here of Kansas City and Buffalo. We'll see it. We have unbelievable quarterbacks in this game. Some weather conditions to worry about there, as we said, around 20 degrees at kickoff, maybe 10-mile-an-hour winds, but no precipitation in the forecast. Bills Mafia will be on fire for this football game, and so is hour number 2 coming up next on Pro Football Today.
Smarter to be on SportsGrid.